All right, this is the second quiz in 4.1. So this is 4.1.4. This is going off of the same thing as the last one, the rights that we have, the rules and tests that government kind of gives itself to making sure that it is following the civil liberties and not violating those liberties. So first thing that this is a main point in the whole unit is freedoms are they're not absolute. Freedom of speech doesn't mean you can say literally whatever you want. You can't go run through the street saying there's a bomb, or I've got a gun. You can't say certain things that threaten public safety or someone's safety. Lives are the most important right, definitely over all of these rights. So whenever any of these liberties are put up against someone's life, the life is always going to win. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That's definitely a big point. All of these liberties, they do have limits. They're not 100%. You can always have a gun wherever you go. You can always have no cruel or unusual punishment. I mean, there's a limit to most stuff. Mostly, when we talk about the limits, we're mostly talking about first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Yeah, mostly those amendments, not really so much the other ones. And then again, the reason that they're limited is because of public interest, public safety. Okay. So we're going to talk really briefly on freedom of religion. There's two parts of freedom of religion that the unit talks about. So we have the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause. So the Establishment Clause, as you can see here, basically makes so a government cannot say this is going to be the religion. Okay, they cannot say that they have an official religion or a supported religion or a suggested religion. You can't have any ties to religion. And this one, Free Exercise Clause, it means that they can't do anything to stop you from practicing your religion. Okay, so this one, establishment, is basically freedom from religion. Like, you do not have to follow a religion. And this one is you have the freedom to follow religion. So either way, whatever you decide, the government cannot tell you what to do. Okay, so these two things, unfortunately, can have some issues. We're going to talk about that later at the end of this unit. So basically what these are is it means separation of church and state. Church meaning a government, or meaning a religion, and state meaning government. They cannot ever influence each other. Okay, they shouldn't influence each other, or rather, church can influence government if they want to because they're part of the citizenship. That's one thing that people do get confused a lot, is a church can influence because they are people in the government, in the body of the population. But government is the thing that we're focusing on here. Government cannot influence churches, and they cannot prohibit anything from the churches. Okay, that is the big misunderstanding a lot of people have. And if that doesn't really make sense to you, let me know and we can talk about that more in detail. So the place where these are established are in the courts. The court system, when something is taken to the court system, they have to decide, is the government, mandating or suggesting a certain religion, or are they keeping someone from their religion? So they have to figure that out in the courts. Basically, and what they have a test. There's a couple tests we're going to talk about to see if they are violating or going against the freedom of religion. And this is the Lemon test. Okay, this was used to figure out, they use this test. It wasn't a certain case about school, but they do use this test in any instance that has to do with government and religion. So in order for a school or basically separation of church and state to be, followed, it cannot, whatever the government is doing, it cannot be used for religious purposes. It cannot encourage or discourage religion, and it cannot entangle the government up in religion. So it cannot look like they're tangled up. Okay, if it gives the appearance or it makes them, kind of go off the same thing, that entanglement is what is unconstitutional. So they use this test, and the courts will use this test every single time they have a court case that comes up about religion and government, and they'll answer these questions to determine if it's a violation or not. Okay, so this is the lemon test. Maybe if you leave a religion, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth and you get sour taste from lemons. Maybe that's a good way to remember what the lemon test is. So basically, these are the rules with the lemon test. There are some protections with the, sorry, my trusty little sidekick here. Hey, Jazzy. Just loves cuddling. Silly dog. Let's see. Okay, so you guys might have heard this before, especially if you watch, crime or business or government or cop shows on TV. There's something called libel and slander. So basically what these mean is false information, or basically lies, that damage someone's reputation. Libel is when it is written like posted in the newspaper or on the internet, something that is actually physically written and published, okay? And slander is just spoken. Either way, though, you can sue someone for violating either of those if what they say about you is false and you can prove it and it damages your reputation, okay? If it doesn't do those, then you have no grounds for suing them. And then you have kind of go along with freedom of speech, and what you cannot say about someone is what you cannot say about government. There are several times in our country's history where we had certain laws called sedition laws. Basically, sedition laws are laws that say government, or you will be fined or put in jail if you say something that goes against the government. Sounds wrong, right? If the government, if we have a right to freedom of speech and including criticizing our government, then how in the world do we have a law that says if you criticize the government, you could be fined or jailed? How does that make sense? Well, the reason why that these are, constitutional when they have these laws is because they have this thing set up that's called a clear and present danger test. So what that whole thing means is if there is clear, meaning like very obvious, and present, meaning it's going on right now, danger to people, like wartime, then usually they have sedition laws that say we have to limit what people say, because if we don't, then some people could get hurt, some people's lives could get lost, people could go on into panic or chaos. This thing is still highly debated because most of the time that I've seen these sedition laws happen in our history, it's correlated with a war or some sort of revolution or some sort of huge change. So whenever that's going on, people, if they're against it, they start talking about it, and that's when they have these sedition laws to suppress what they say against it. I'm not convinced that sedition laws should ever be constitutional because that's one of our founding principles of our country. You should have the right to say that you disagree and tell others that you disagree about what's going on. So that's the sedition laws, and that's the reason why they've been held constitutional, is because they had enough of a reason to say, yes, there's a clear and present danger, meaning that people's lives could be at risk if they get, if they're allowed to just speak whatever they want. Let's see, last thing, or second to last thing, the gag order, I mentioned that in the last video. Basically, this is if there's sensitive documents that a publishing company wants to release, but a government agency is saying, no, this is sensitive information, we need to institute a gag order because this could harm people, or this could cause destruction or chaos or insecurities. So basically, gag orders could be can be put in place for the press not to release information if it endangers the public or if it encourages violence. Okay, so if it's going to do either of those two, then they can institute a gag order and they won't be allowed to publish that stuff. Last one, because you guys are in school, schools can limit freedom of speech because you are required to be there. It is a government institution, and you are also minors. So anything that involves minors, things are limited more than if you were adults. School newspapers, they can be limited by the school. Basically, the school can say yes or no to anything, because they can allow things to publish as long as it goes along with what the school sees as its mission and deems not, like getting in the way of what they're trying to do for the school. So there's not really a lot of freedom in school newspapers, but they are great for people who are going into journalism to get that practice, to start doing some investigative things. And if you have, good administrators or supervisor or advisor over the newspaper, then it should be okay. So that's it for 4.1. For 0.4, we'll get into some more information for the next quiz. So yeah.